All right, let's talk about something huge, something that's shaped our world and our fears for centuries: global population. We're going to dive right into this because it's a topic that's, well, way more surprising than you might think.
So right now, as you're listening to this, there are over 8.2 billion of us on this planet. Just take that in for a second. That number is absolutely massive. It's more than double what it was just 50 years ago. And for a really long time, a number that big meant only one thing. We were all completely doomed.
And this is the idea that really lit the fuse. This terrifying quote comes from biologist Paul Ehrlich's book, The Population Bomb, back in 1970. It was a cultural phenomenon, and it planted this deep, deep fear in our collective minds that we were on a collision course with total collapse.
So let's start there, with that really powerful idea. The fear that our own success, our sheer numbers, would be our undoing.
You know, the original idea actually goes way, way back to an economist named Thomas Malthus in 1798. His logic was brutally simple. He said population doesn't just grow, it explodes. It grows exponentially. Think 2, 4, 8, 16. But our ability to get resources, like food, only grows linearly. 2, 4, 6, 8. It's a race we can't win. Eventually, the population curve skyrockets past the resource line, and bam, famine, war, disaster. Now, the modern guys, the neo-Malthusians like Ehrlich, they basically said, yeah, Malthus was right. Technology just delayed the inevitable, and it's making the crash even bigger when it finally comes.
But what if that whole terrifying story is wrong? What if the math isn't that simple? Well, there's another theory, a much more hopeful one called demographic transition, and it says population growth isn't some runaway train. No, it's a predictable four-stage story that basically every society follows as it develops.
So how does this story go? Well, it starts in stage 1, which is most of human history. You've got tons of babies being born, but you've also got tons of people dying young. So high birth rates, high death rates, and the population is pretty stable. Then comes stage 2. This is the big one, the population explosion. Modern medicine, sanitation, suddenly death rates plummet. But culture is slow to change, so birth rates stay high for a while. That's your boom. But then, and this is crucial, we hit stage 3. As societies get richer and move to cities, birth rates finally start to drop. Which leads us to stage 4, where you get a new balance: low birth rates and low death rates. The population levels off and even stabilizes.
So what's the magic switch? Why did birth rates fall so dramatically in stage 3? It all comes down to a really simple economic shift. Think about it. On a farm, another child is another pair of hands to help with the work. They're an economic asset. But in a city, another child is another mouth to feed, another bedroom to find, more tuition to pay. They become, in purely economic terms, a liability.
Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road. We've got these two totally different stories. We have the Malthusian bomb ticking away, and we have this calm, four-stage demographic transition. So let's look at the real-world numbers and see which story is actually coming true.
So, which is it? A ticking time bomb of unstoppable growth, or a predictable natural transition to stability? For decades, that fear of the bomb has driven everything. But what's the verdict? What does the data actually say? Is that bomb still ticking?
And here it is, the big reveal. According to the absolute latest projections from the UN, the story is not endless growth, not at all. Our global population is actually expected to hit a peak around 10.3 billion people later this century. And then something totally wild happens. For the first time ever, it's projected to start a slow, steady decline.
This is it. This is the demographic transition theory playing out on a global stage. Just think about how huge this is. For all of human history, the only thing that made population go down was a catastrophe. A plague, a world war, a massive famine. This is the first time we're seeing our numbers projected to go down, not because of disaster, but because of progress, because of development and individual choice. It looks like the bomb has been diffused.
Phew. So, crisis averted, right? We can all breathe a sigh of relief. Well, not so fast, because this is where the story takes a massive twist. It turns out that solving the population problem might have created a completely different, and maybe even bigger, crisis.
And this right here is the great paradox of our time. The exact same engine of progress, modernization, economic development, the very thing that lowers birth rates and stops the population bomb, also happens to crank our environmental impact up to 11.
Let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale of this, because it's pretty mind-blowing. Since the Industrial Revolution, our population has shot up by about 7 times, which is a lot. But in that exact same period, our global energy use, which is a pretty good stand-in for our total consumption, has skyrocketed by a factor of 100. 100 times. You see, the real story isn't how many of us there are. It's how much stuff we're all using.
So what's the engine behind all this consumption? It's not just technology. It's a profound cultural shift that comes with living in modern urban societies. Some sociologists call it the cult of the individual. As we move away from traditional, community-focused lives, we start to put a massive emphasis on our own personal choices, our own self-expression, our own fulfillment.
And it really all boils down to this. The Malthusians were worried about the number of bodies, but the real driver of our biggest environmental challenges today, from climate change to resource depletion, it isn't the head count. It's our lifestyle. It's a consumption problem, not a population problem.
So where does that leave us? It might sound a little bleak, like we just traded one catastrophe for another. But here's the thing. Reframing it this way actually gives us power. It means our future isn't some number we can't control. It's a choice. It's a choice we all get to make.
And look, this doesn't mean we have to give up on being individuals and all the freedoms we value. It means we have to evolve our idea of what a good life even is. What if being an individual wasn't about the car you own, but about the incredible experiences you have? What if success wasn't about how much stuff you can pile up, but about your creativity or your contribution? This idea of a sustainable individualism is about making things like environmentalism the ultimate cool act of self-expression.
So in the end, it turns out we've been obsessing over the wrong question for decades. The question isn't how many people can fit on the planet. The real question, the one that's going to define this century, is this: how will we, all 8, 9, or maybe even 10 billion of us, choose to live together on it? That's a question we all get to answer. Thanks for joining The Explainer.